One of our ladies is Jenny. She's tiny. She makes me look short, so she's under 5 foot. She has 3 teenage daughters that she's raising. And we just all the machines are sort of in a row. It looks like we're in a bus, sitting in a bus. And she sits right up the front of the bus, and I'm a bit further back so I can watch what they're all doing. And she, out of the blue, we were talking about having a job and what that meant and how awesome would it feel. And she said, in Australia, she said, you have to have 2 things, a license and a job. And if you have them 2 things, you have made it. And she said, I've made it. One, at the risk of tearing up, Jenny has really attached herself to me, and vice versa. She messages me of a night, and she thanked me. She thanked me one night for recreating her, because she didn't have another word in English, and that was the only word she could express how she was actually feeling.
You're listening to Justice Matters with Tim Buxton, a podcast inspiring the fight for a world where everyone belongs. Hey there, I am excited for today's episode. We have 3 lovely ladies from Mantua Sewing Studios. Now, it's a bit of a mouthful, so I'm going to read this out. Mantua is an employment-focused social enterprise charity that provides local, ethical and high-quality design and manufacturing services to Australian clothing labels. Now, they do this by drawing on the expertise of migrant and refugee background women. Now, guys, I sit down with Maddie, who's a co-founder, and she provides all the operational management for Mantua. I also sit down with Leah, who brings with her 35 years of fashion industry expertise. She's the trainer, the product manager for Mantua, and then we have Gabrielle. She's the newest addition to the team. She is head of label design management, and she's also a junior designer, fresh from the UK, graduating at a great fashion school there in London. Now, guys, the tissues come out for this episode. They share right from the heart their own personal stories of what drew them into this work, addressing the migrant, refugee community to help empower them, this vulnerable community in Australia that really need employment and an opportunity to really belong, and they are doing that. They also address some of the issues within the fashion industry and the exploitation, really, of women in particular. So, guys, there's lots to take away from this. If you're someone that has an idea or a passion and want to get a charity or a social enterprise started, you're going to be inspired by listening to this. I had a wonderful time talking with these ladies. Without further ado, here's my episode with them. Well, I'm so excited to have you lovely ladies in the studio. It's great to actually have an interview with people in person. Obviously, a lot of my previous guests have been on Skype, and, you know, it's difficult sometimes getting people around with COVID these days and the different restrictions that have been on over the last little while. But thanks for coming in. I can't wait to hear more about the story of Mantua. First of all, though, you know, I want to say, Maddie, thank you so much for sharing with me your story a couple months ago. I came up to Brisbane, where you have the operations headquarters, and you just really lit up my day. I was able to meet with a few other people there, and it was just lovely getting to know you and hearing your story. And I knew I had to get you and your team in for a podcast interview. Let's start things off, though. I'm assuming people don't really know much about Mantua. There might be a few of your fans out there tuning in. But for those that don't know what Mantua is, can you tell me, Maddie? I'll start with you. what is Mantua?
Okay, well, Mantua is a employment-focused social enterprise. We're also a charity that provides local, ethical, high-quality design and manufacturing services for Australian clothing labels by drawing on the sewing expertise of women from refugee and migrant backgrounds. So that's our elevator pitch.
That is amazing. I mean, I'd love to unpack that a bit more. Obviously, each of those points you kind of made are integral to the vision and the heart of Mantua. Mm-hmm. Maddie, I'd love to hear a bit more about your story. Can you tell me why? Why you're a co-founder? Yeah. Why'd you start Mantua?
It's a bit of a puzzle. Like, a few different things have happened, but mainly for me, like, my parents were migrants. So they migrated from the Cook Islands to New Zealand, and from New Zealand they came to Australia when I was about 8 years old. My dad had very limited English when he came here, and my mum couldn't really speak English as well. So to be able to provide for us, he enrolled in a TAFE course to learn English, and so he did that in the evenings, and then he taught my mum how to speak English. And yeah, I just grew up seeing a bit of a disconnect between like my mum not being able to speak English properly, so not being able to go out into like the local community, and just not feel comfortable, not being able to get a job, and so that really resonated with me. So that was one of the other things. And then I tried to start a clothing label with my son. We went to Nicaragua on a mission trip with some other people to help raise money for people, the poorest of the poor. So they were living in a dumpster. Wow. And so we helped raise money to create funds so that they could have housing. And I thought, the best way, would be a business. Like, maybe we just start selling some shirts. And so I advertised. I was looking for someone to make my shirts, and I went on Gumtree, and that's where I met Leah. And
wow,
she designed some really cool shirts for us, and we became friends. And then, there's that part of it, that piece of the puzzle. Yep.
So, sounds like we could probably chime in to Lee here.
Yeah,
in a bit,
go for it.
Man, what a story you have. Like, I mean, to see your family, what did it feel like for you? I mean, growing up in Australia, you're a young kid. I mean, must have been hard to see your parents struggle like that.
Yeah. It was really hard, but they got through. They met like a group. There was like a community church plant, and so through there's a Cook Island community. Yeah. So we live in Logan, and there's like all sorts of different communities there from different backgrounds.
It's quite a diverse.
It's very diverse.
Part of Australia, isn't it, Logan?
Yeah, we have a lot of migrants and refugees there. Yeah. And so there is a Cook Island community there.
Yeah.
And through there, my parents were able to meet some people from a church. And my mum was really sick at the time, and so they taught her how to cook vegan meals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so my parents both became vegans. And and that was a safe place for her. She was able to go and practice speaking English because my dad taught her how to speak English. So she would go and she'd, practice
How did your dad teach her? Did he just sit down at night and kind of do like his own little course? Because I know for a lot of refugees and migrants coming here, they get given 500 hours of TAFE or 600 hours, I think, to learn English, but a lot of them just really struggle still. I mean,
terrible.
It's just not necessarily the easiest way. I lived in another country. I lived in the Middle East, and to learn the language Kurdish, I didn't have a formal education in it. I had to just go into the community. But when you don't feel like you can belong into a community, when everything feels strange, it can be really hard.
Yeah.
How did your dad do it?
I can't really remember. What I do remember is that he would come home and he would have like these books with thesauruses, and like he'd just like learn the different words, and he'd practice it with me, and then we'd write them out, the spelling, and and then so I do remember him, like he would teach my mum what he learnt at his
Yeah.
class. So, yeah.
How? Wow! What an awesome dad.
Yeah.
Oh, you must have a wonderful family. So switching over, is that right?
Yeah,
to
go
Leah.
for it, yeah.
You contact Leah.
Yes.
You're starting a design business with your son. Is that right?
Yeah,
At the time?
yep.
But in the back of your mind, you got this desire to really help refugees and migrant people.
Yeah.
Leah, tell me your side of the story. How did you find out? What drew you to this work?
Maddie answered a Gumtree ad that I had where I advertised my services in the fashion industry, everything from product development, sampling, machining, and Maddie answered an ad and we started talking and I think after a short amount of time we become friends and then she said, told me about how she wanted to start a social enterprise. The idea was very basic. In the beginning, it was just a sentence on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And so I remember starting because I used to work in my home base garage.
You've been in the industry for 35 years,
Over
right?
35 years,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
So, I've always worked from home. Other than teaching at TAFE colleges, I've always worked from home, from my home-based workrooms, so that I could raise my children and be involved with them rather than being away from work. So the fashion industry actually provided that for me. So I met Maddie. I don't even remember how we when we started talking about. Didn't even have a name. It was just this idea. I do remember practicing cutting with a hand electric cutter because I thought, well, I'm going to need that skill. And so I remember practicing it because it wasn't something I had been doing. And then then we started talking about creating.
So, can you give me a bit more about your story and some of the, I remember talking with you a bit before and you said, look, this being a part of Mantua in a way, you said it kind of changed your life.
Yep.
In what way?
I've always worked in the fashion industry, but because I've worked from my home-based workrooms, so that I could raise my children, it meant that I had to take on jobs that weren't usually very secure. And unfortunately, machinists in the fashion industry aren't paid properly, and they're exploited whether you are a white Australian or particularly a new Australian. So the job that I'd had at the time ceased overnight.
Wow.
And I was I live on my own with my cats, and I wasn't for the first time in my whole life I wasn't able to live independently, and it was just a very scary time in my life financially. So I was basically homeless overnight, and it amazed me that no matter how many skills I had, it only and it goes with many people who are homeless in Australia, particularly. They only have to lose a job or a spouse or
you're
an
on the
income.
brink, basically.
Yep. And
you're
you're
living
homeless.
on the brink.
Yep. So, Mantua. It wasn't even called Mantua in the beginning, but we had no name for it. But we had this desire to, no matter what our own financial situations were, and mine, we had this this urge. I had this urge to make a difference, and I've always thought that, my whole life, wanting to make a difference to other people's life. And in my own personal growth, I thought the only way, the best way to make yourself feel better is to make someone else feel better.
Yeah.
And every day I am still amazed with how helping others, particularly with our refugee and migrant women now, with Mantua, they are actually have given me a life.
Yeah.
And my skills are being valued and respected as it's never been before. I've never been so busy. I imagined at this stage of my life that I'd be slowing down.
Yeah.
But my passion...
Does she slow down? Is she slowing down?
No. Speeding up.
I whine about it.
Yeah.
We had to set 3-year goals a few months ago for the business, and one of my my first goal was to work 25 hours a week, and my other goal was for Mantua to be a happy, healthy workroom, and I'm trying to make both those things to come true.
Oh, Leah, what an incredible story, and it's only just beginning.
Oh, it's
which
only
is exciting.
beginning. I'm just
it's like signing a new lease on life for you.
I know when I've actually carved without knowing it in the beginning. I've actually carved out my perfect job. Which is training, which is I just love training, and the aspects of the fashion industry that I like, without having to put up with the things I don't like.
Yeah. Well, I love your story of hope, even in the most darkest probably moment of your life, when it felt like everything was just ending and falling apart. There's a beautiful new door that's opened up. That's seeing you do more than you ever could have dreamed of. And I've got Gabrielle here on the other side of the table just beaming and smiling as you share that. You're the newest member to the team.
Yeah.
And in fact, you kind of came in at quite a interesting moment. Flew into Australia, right?
Yep, July 24th.
July 24th.
Crazy.
And by that accident, sounds like you're from the motherland.
I am.
Can you just, tell us a bit more about why you want to be part of Mantua? Love to hear your story.
Yeah,
a bit.
basically to make a difference. I've always loved being in the fashion industry. I always grew up being really creative, drawing, painting, making clothes, and just kind of fueling that passion. I think for a while it took me a couple of years in my life to accept that I am creative and that's what I need to do within my life. And I remember experiencing many people you won't be able to get a career in that. You need something that's going to be able to pay well, as opposed to doing something because you actually love doing it. So I took that as a stand, no, do you know what? I really want to do what I love to do. And, you've got to do the rest of your life, spending time doing that. So sort of why not? When I was 2, I moved to the UK with my parents. Grew up there, started school, secondary school, and then my family moved back 5 years ago.
What was that like?
Difficult, but I knew
How old were you?
I was 17 at the time.
And they left you high and dry in the UK. You're
Not
I'm
high
not
and dry.
going. Nah.
No, they did support me, but when I went to university and I did my foundation degree, I met a lovely family there who I
wonderful.
stayed with. They pretty much took me in as their own daughter. And studied and graduated, and it was pretty much the best decision of my life. But I think definitely the difference that Mantua has is that you kind of feel a part of the family. You feel at home, you feel valued, you feel taken care of. I did internships and I had this one experience where I was a print designer for 4 months and I had to do it as part of my year 2 year 2 project basically. And I came in, they kind of told me, okay, well, this is what you're doing, this is your project, and just left me to it. I just had a desk, it faced the wall. They weren't friendly. They pretty much just told me the only communication I had with them was, you know, giving them my work that I did, and they'd be like, okay, you need to change this color or change this size, or, you know, learn a few more things on Photoshop. Like, there wasn't any training. And the only positive thing that I can draw out of it is it fueled me to know what I wanted to do. And it was a good thing. I love doing the print design aspect of things, but the whole like communication and friendship and community, like that was just completely gone. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was really hard. And I think a lot of people have negative experiences about the fashion industry, especially like what Leah said. So to be able to find a place where you feel comfortable, I think that's really valued. And when you've got that, you know, don't let go of that. So yeah, I pretty much knew straight away that this is where I needed to be, and it just felt really right. I didn't have any regrets, you know, moving across the world and things like that, especially during the pandemic time. And the first day in the workroom, it just felt as if I've known Leah and Maddie for my life.
How did you end up getting it? Because you're in the UK. How did you end up getting the job? You just put in...
Yes,
saw an ad, or
crazy story. We've got loads of stories here. So I was a year out of university, really looking for a job. I had a part-time job that kind of just supported me to pay my rent and things, but it wasn't within my field. Began to question what I wanted to do in life. I knew my family were in Australia, but I was very settled living in the UK. Had good church, had good friends. And yeah, one day I just sort of felt this uncomfortable feeling. Normally when people would ask me, oh, would you ever move back to Australia? I was always like, oh, nah, like I'm really settled. And yeah, this feeling sort of overcome me, and I didn't really know what to do, but I just kind of ran with it and thought, okay, well, you know, let me try and apply for jobs in Australia, see if it's a possibility, don't shut the door, you know, kind of be open to suggestions. And my auntie, she lives in Australia and she's part of the fashion industry as well. So I was kind of talking to her just to kind of see how the fashion community was here, what I needed to do, whether you guys had internships here, and just how it sort of worked. And she came across Mantua. She was in touch with Kim and had some emails, and she goes, oh, well, I follow them on Instagram. They're a little small team, you know, they're looking for an intern, you know, apply and see. So I thought, okay, you know, I applied, and I had an interview, and no, it just went really, really well.
Wow.
All kind of really worked out. So
you flew over July 24th. You would have had to get special permission to leave, or how did what was that like coming into Australia?
It was, I felt like I was kind of in prison and something was wrong with me. You kind of get off the plane when I landed in Brisbane, and no one was really in the airport.
What did they call it? Escorted?
I did, yeah. They had policemen there. They had people from the army. They kind of sprayed you with this kind of, disinfectant thing as you came off. Then the police read parts of the act of the law, what you had to do. You had to abide by these rules. You know, you can't touch anyone. You have to be in quarantine. You can't get out of your hotel. You've got to stay there. You have your swab testing done and everything like that. Yeah. So, I just felt like I didn't.
Welcome to Australia.
Yeah, brilliant. Because normally all my family come, they welcome me, they have balloons, and I've got quite a big family, so it was very much just, well, this is a new experience. Yeah. But
hopefully they made up for it when you got out.
They did. They threw me a party. So no, I think grandparents really happy, family happy. Because I was the only family member away from Australia.
Oh, well, welcome.
So, thank you.
Welcome. and I know Maddie is so excited that you're here, and Leah too, and we're glad you made it. I just love the different, obviously parts to the story, parts of the puzzle that you kind of bring in. Mantua is pretty new. How long have you guys been around? How can you talk more about how it began? And maybe, a bit more about your roles and what you play. Let's get into the nitty-gritty things of it. Maddie, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so when I had met Leah, the idea for Mantua hadn't even,
crystallised.
Crystallised, yeah. And then when I actually thought about it, I just wrote something, wouldn't it be great if we could have a training centre, because I try to get clothes done overseas, but you had to have all these large minimums, and it was very expensive, and I was like, oh, there's no way I'm going to be able to do any of this. I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we had something here? Yeah. But I wasn't expecting something big. I was just thinking, something small in our local community. We can, because there's heaps of migrants and refugees. We could train them, and then so it was just a little idea. do a lot of community work, and that's where I met Kim. And yeah, so she had her own social enterprise. So I didn't even know what a social enterprise is. So yeah, when I got to meet Kim and she was like telling me, I was like, wow, that's so cool. And then I said, yeah, so from there, I ended up showing her what I had written down on the piece of paper, and she's like, this is a social enterprise. I was like, oh, okay, wow. So she's like, yeah, let's do it. And then, so she had just, her business went through the Impact Boom program, accelerator program. So they help social enterprises, with connections and like startups become like from an idea, like
so
to help get them started.
So Impact Boom is founded by a group of investors essentially that really want to get behind social enterprises and help them get started. Is that right?
Brisbane Council.
Tom, I forgot his name. Sorry.
Tom. Someone out there named Tom.
Yes.
Yep. Is he the guy with Vanguard Laundry?
So that's Luke Terry.
That's Luke Terry.
So
okay.
yes. Oh, so through the program we met Luke Terry.
Yeah.
So he came and talked about Vanguard Laundry and what he does.
Which is another great social enterprise.
Yes, which is
we've had another social enterprise, which is where we met.
Yep.
On this podcast, Outland Denim.
Yes. So that's
James
even another
Bartle.
story.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we've got lots of different awesome connections here. So I think this is really awesome because there's some people out there like you, they've got an idea in their head, but you just got to put it on paper.
Yeah.
Let that little vision of yours start somewhere. It might be a little small, but you never know who's out there waiting to invest, wanting to get behind you. You share it with somebody else. They share that passion, and suddenly something comes to life. And as you're sharing it, kind of, I think for a lot of people might be listening in, they might have that real desire to make an impact, really wanting to see a change in their community, and not to hold back.
Yes.
No,
And you might be a little quiet, Maddie, but you have so much passion and drive in you, and that's just amazing to see.
Thanks.
So you put it on paper.
Yeah.
You get some people behind you to kind of get going. Can you flesh out the story a bit more? And
Yeah, so Kim was one of our co-founders. So it was Kim, Leah and myself as part of so we got through to the Impact Boom program.
Yeah.
And that's where we really nutted out how Mantua was going to run. And so Kim was
build your business plan out a bit more.
Yeah. So that's like her skills. She has skills in startups. And so she really helped us. Like, she got stuff out of Leah's head. Did you want to share about that?
No, well, Kim basically, I mean, I have had these skills all my life.
You've been in the industry for so long. You've got so many.
Yeah.
Yeah. From production management to the actual skills to now teaching as well.
Yep. So basically, we would have Sunday afternoons where we'd plan for 3 hours, and it would end up 6 hours. So Kim would take everything, write down everything that I said and as you say, flesh out all the processes. And I just explain it as she turned everything I do and everything I said into a spreadsheet and a process. So
what I'm getting from that is the importance of having a plan, right? Of not just, you can have the heart, you can have the passion, you can have the drive, but if you don't organise those things, you can even have the equipment and it's but if you don't have a plan to work from, to help guide you and to steer you, it's going to be very difficult to kind of achieve that goal that you want to have. That's really great. It's great how you find the right people at the right time. You found Kim.
Yeah.
You've got Leah, now Gabrielle. Justice Matters is brought to you by You Belong. If you'd like to learn more about their work, empowering refugees to integrate and thrive in Australia, head on over to youbelong.org.au. There you'll find ways to get involved, volunteer and financially get behind the several initiatives they've got going on. There's also a stack of articles and blogs that you'll find there that are really informative and engaging. Now, did you know this podcast is actually a video podcast featured on YouTube? Just search Justice Matters TV on YouTube and watch each episode right there. And while you're there, hit subscribe and get notified each time a new video drops. And so you run operations,
Yes.
Maddie. You're the production
And training.
and training manager. Gabrielle, what's your role?
Yep, so I'm the label manager, so I work alongside Leah as well, just to book in all of our scheduling and things like that, sending out the invoices and just kind of being that middle person between Mantua and then the labels as well. And then also like a junior designer on the side, so we have the vision of having Mantua the label.
Yeah.
So that's where my skills will come in, doing the technical flats and the drawings and thinking of the new items we want to be able to produce and
Right.
potentially sell alongside the production that we do for the labels, just to be able to kind of fuel the training program funding more.
So you got two sides. You've got clients that come to you and say, "Can you make this for me?" So you do that, but then
Yep.
you've got your own. You're trying to develop your own label, Mantua line,
Yeah.
and you've studied this in school in
Yeah, I
London.
did. Yeah, so fashion illustration is what I studied. So
How
yeah.
cool is that? And so you're bringing those skills and expertise, the fresh new
Yeah.
ideas into the scene, and you've got your experience and
Yeah.
and your skills as well. Guys, you're like a powerhouse team. I love it. What have been some of the biggest challenges that you've kind of faced?
I think we've had good challenges, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, that
challenge
does.
at the moment is we've got a lot of people on our waiting list. So we've got about 17 labels at the moment, and every week I get about 5 emails saying, would you be able to produce for us? We've got these ideas, and it's like, we're really sorry, we've got a waiting list, and at the moment we've got like over 30 people on our waiting list. So
How do they find out about you guys?
it's crazy. It's just blows up through Google. We've got a Facebook page, an Instagram page, and
Yeah.
we're just sort of starting out, and just to be able to see that growth, or this label's working with you at the moment and we know her, and I want to start
Really?
my own little label here, would you be able to help? And
Sounds
it's just like, we just need more people. I think if we had people, then so it's a good challenge to have.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
So that's one of your more recent challenges. It's like a snowball effect. You mentioned earlier it's like virally kind of growing, and your reputation is getting out there. That's really, and you're right, that's a
Yeah.
great challenge.
Yeah.
Earlier on though, I'm sure, Maddie, you've probably, there's been some days where you maybe wanted to just throw in the towel. Maybe not throw in the towel, but you didn't know if you'd be able to make it.
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
you don't strike me as the person that would ever consider giving up as an option.
Yeah.
But can you talk about some of those
The earlier ones?
earlier struggles? Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a few. I think one of the main ones would have to be when Kim decided to leave. And like we were happy, I was happy for her. So grateful for everything that she'd done.
A founding
Yep.
member, early
Yep.
founder with you. Yeah.
Yeah, because we wouldn't have gotten to where we were without her.
Wow.
So yeah, really appreciate that. And happy that she was, chasing her dream, because her other social enterprise is her dream. And so, like, my thought was anyone that comes to Mantua, I would love them to be a part of it. But if at any time that they wanted to leave, they would have that option to leave, and we would, not hold it against them, because I want people that want to be here, like, Yeah, so that was challenging, because she had a lot of skills that I don't have. And so I was like, I don't know how we're going to make this work. And so we had to try and transfer all her roles to Leah and myself. This was before we had found Gabrielle. So that was really stressful. So, yeah. But
And you're a mother of 4.
4, yes.
Gosh, that's got to be. I mean, I can see this heart, this mother heart that you have for anyone that comes into the organisation. They feel loved and at home. I mean,
Yes.
that's really special. But that's got to be quite a challenge to be putting all this time and energy in, trying to raise children.
Yes.
Wow.
It's a lot of work, but I feel like this is what I've been called to do. Like, I feel like this is what gets me up out of bed, and it gives me purpose. And, yeah.
Oh, man.
Maddie does part of her role from the beginning was the wraparound support. There's one thing to offer training to this vulnerable group, which is refugee and migrant women who are already vulnerable. They're easily exploited, and as being refugee and migrant women, they're not familiar with what it means to actually even live in Australia, let alone hold a job. So, and we found very easily that we can offer training and we can offer employment, but we have to go further than that. There's no point offering someone employment if they're too scared to drive to the workshop, or if they don't know procedure of what happens if I can't go to work. Explaining the little things about what it means to have a job and your responsibility in that job.
Just life. I mean, they're in a new culture. There's a new way of doing things.
Yeah. English is just very, they find, we find it hard to understand them, and they find it very hard to understand us. So Maddie does.
She speaks the language of love and makes sure that they get that support.
From the beginning, Maddie was driving them all to the work.
Picking them up from home, driving them in.
Yeah.
Is there any particular story or person that kind of comes to mind when you think, hey, this is why we do Mantua, this is what it's all about? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, both the ladies that we have now. So I was driving Jenny, and now she drives herself. Like, that is a big achievement in herself.
Just to get a license.
Yeah. To get a license and to be able to navigate outside of our community.
That means she needs to know the English language well enough to be able to read the signs, to know where to go, know the rules, to know where to go. I mean,
and to have the confidence to drive on the road up to
confidence is a big
where
one.
our workroom is. There's a lot of traffic, so the day she the first day she drove, we're just ridiculously over the moon. And we celebrate all these little ridiculously small
They're not
things.
small. I failed my driver's license test 3 times. 3 times. So I could only imagine, what an incredible achievement. Later on in life too. I mean, when you have to kind of go back into that situation, it can be a lot harder than...
I always try to put myself in their shoes as to, what I'd be feeling if I was in their situation. And that actually gets us through, or it gets me through most days.
Yeah, I felt really overwhelmed coming here, not necessarily like how Australia runs is very different to the UK, and this is for me who speaks English and reads and writes English as well, so I couldn't even imagine what the ladies
and
kind of
you've got a lot of family support around
and you think those people who have come alone, especially our ladies, like some of the stories that they've had, just really inspiring. And I think you've got to take the small wins into consideration, because these are the things that kind of bring us and keep us going, and it's the things we're going to look back on and be like, oh my gosh, we did that, like how cool, let's hold on to that, and that just fuels our energy and kind of pretty much keeps us going for the next week and the next week and the next week, and then you're like you say, a year on, and here we are.
One of our we can't have this interview without actually saying telling you about some of the things, a couple of the things. We have this, one of our ladies is Jenny. She's tiny. She makes me look short, so she's under 5 foot. She has 3 teenage daughters that she's raising. And we just, all the machines are sort of in a row. It looks like we're in a bus, sitting in a bus. And she sits right up the front of the bus, and I'm a bit further back so I can watch what they're all doing. And she, out of the blue, we were talking about having a job and what that meant and how awesome would it feel. And she said, in Australia, she said, you have to have 2 things, a license and a job. And if you have them 2 things, you have made it. And she said, I've made it.
Yeah.
One,
Man.
at the risk of tearing up, Jenny has really attached herself to me, and vice versa. She messages me of a night, and she thanked me. She thanked me one night for recreating her, because she didn't have another word in English, and that was the only word she could express how she was actually feeling. What happened to that tissue? And she said, you have given me back my life. You have recreated me. And
Thanks.
For those of you listening on the audio, we are handing out the tissues. So this is
and when we hear and see the difference we're making by the little tiny things that we're doing, you would think there'd be huge things that we celebrate and that we get teary over, but it's the tiny little things like recreating her, giving her back her life. That is, and all I'm doing is teaching her to sew. It's shown us, or reminded me, it's the tiny little things that make a great life. One of during this time when we were putting them on as paid trainees, where they started as volunteer trainees,
like students, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then when we got them to a certain stage, we put them on. So about 6 weeks ago, we put them on to being paid trainees now, and they've got a 6-month contract that I will
supervise them through,
to achieve all their goals in the next 6 months. Jenny, we were talking about, because we always try to ensure that we're actually achieving the goals that we want to with Mantua, and so we always go back to our values if we have to make a decision. And when we were talking with, because I talk with the ladies all the time that we're sewing in the workroom, and you can't help but talk to them. They're funny. They're just so funny. And Jenny said, she just popped up and she hadn't said it to me before, but she said, Mantua is not just a job. It's a family, and it's like out of the mouth of babes. It was like we've actually, look what we've done, and we could not have done it without the ladies. The ladies help us do and they remind us if we get a little bit above ourselves, what we're doing, and you can't help but want to do more, and it's those type of things, and the growth of both Jenny and Saida, who have tried to hold down jobs in outside of Mantua, and they've had terrible experiences.
Wow.
Particularly in the fashion industry. I mean, the fashion industry.
So there's a lot of exploitation you referenced earlier.
Yeah.
What an awesome opportunity you have to set the standard, to raise the level of respect that machinists, sewers have, the value. Much. And maybe you could talk into maybe why there's been such a growth in demand too. I mean, I can only assume with COVID-19 and some of the stark realities that it's important to produce locally as well. You guys are an answer to that as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think in a way COVID-19 has made it a little bit more difficult, but also has made brands maybe realise more about what they want to do and how they kind of want to grow in that aspect of being able to not produce offshore but actually bring it to Australia and help, support and fuel the country that we call our home. So I think it's a good thing. But also I think with jobs at the moment, it's also difficult as well to be able to find the people who have got the skill to be able to help. I think that's also difficult as well. I think that's one of the struggles that we're having at the moment, is trying to find machinists to be able to recruit, to have on board, so we can take on more work. And
so
they're
need
gold dust.
You need more machinists. You also need to be able to train more too, because that's a part of your training and developing those that don't have skills and giving them, like Jenny, a new start in life, a new career. You guys are doing a lot of things. You
wear a lot of hats.
You wear a lot of hats. That's got to be quite challenging at times. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are your hopes for the future? What's some of your goals that you've I'd love to hear some of those things you've set out. What's the future hold for Mantua?
Well, definitely the sewing school. So we want to launch Mantua Sewing School. So that's been we just got, at the beginning, we were so busy that we forgot to apply for our fundraising license. So we weren't actually allowed to ask for donations. And so we just received that this week.
Oh,
That was a win.
That was a win.
Yeah, let's get the party poppers out.
So, I just came up with like a donation program, to help to be able to fund Mantua Sewing School. Because since manufacturing went offshore 20 years ago, the skills in Australia has declined.
Yep.
We're interviewing people who are saying that they're level 5s, and we actually, bring them in for a trial and they're level 1s and 2s, and it's just not industry
ready.
They're just not industry ready. So I've been reaching out to some people in government because it's not on the priority list.
Yeah.
But I really believe that it should be, and that machining is going to be big. It's going to be huge.
Yep.
And we're proof of that, what we're doing here, the work that we've got the work, we've got sewers.
Yeah.
So in my local community in Logan, where we first found the first lot of training, the women, they have sewing hubs. And so, I'm linked in with all the sewing hubs. So we have sewers who are ready to be trained.
Yeah.
We have the work. We just need the space to be able to do it and some funding.
You guys are ready to go. You've got the vision, you've got the plan.
We got the work.
You got the work. Yep. You just need a little bit of help. Yep. So there's people can volunteer with you guys if they've got skills or have the opportunity. They can donate to you. You've got a fundraising license.
I think we've had our first donation this week.
Oh, I'm not sure. I haven't checked yet, but
that is
someone
exciting.
Was emailing us saying, "Oh, can I please make a donation?" It's yes, of course you can.
So we need to get the word out. Yeah. And it's an investment. That's what I love about it. You're investing in the future of business in Australia. You're investing in lives that have gone through so much trauma, so much suffering, so much pain. But have people that have so much to give, and you're investing in changed lives. You're investing in women. I think that's really, really important too. There's so many, like you mentioned, women who work so hard in this industry.
It's so machining skills. I mean, I've been a machinist teacher for 30 years, and machinist skills to actually hone machining skills takes a lot. I've been working at it for 35 years and I'm still learning, and yet the skill set is so devalued.
So there's a real need to bring that back to the value that it deserves.
Yeah, I think not even just with machining, but being creative, and even what Maddie was saying, sewing, how it's not, the government don't see it as a priority. No. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, especially for me, it's not a good career, but it's hey, you're wearing clothes, you've got sofas, you've got pillows, you've got all this sort of stuff. It's well, who's going to make that if you don't want us to follow our dreams and kind of pursue it.
Yeah.
I always look at it that way, you know, there's
Yeah.
jobs out there for everyone and everyone is skilled at something else. So I think that just needs to be appreciated more. And yeah.
I'd forget the statistic. I remember sitting down with James Bartle at Outland Down, and he was giving me this crazy statistic of how many people are, you know, percentage of people involved in the fashion
Yeah.
industry.
It's huge.
There's so many.
It's huge, and yet it seems like exploitation is rife within.
If you, I can't remember who said it, but if you buy a $5 T-shirt, someone has been exploited.
Wow.
Yeah, you see things, and I think especially coming on board with Mantua, you kind of realise more like when you go shopping and things like that and see the prices and seeing Leah and Jenny and Saida actually how long it takes to sew and how much dedication and, you know, accuracy is delivered into each garment, and, you know, for the price of what you pay, I think it's really kind of made me realise like, wow, okay.
You're in the
what's-
industry.
Yeah,
and
what's
you're
going
thinking
on
that.
in the background sort of thing, you know.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I wasn't really aware of it. Like, you hear stories, but you're not really aware of it until you're actually in it. And, yeah, just, like, the amount of money that people overseas, workers get paid, it's just
Yeah.
And the
ridiculous.
conditions.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's oppression. Like, they're being oppressed. And, yeah, I feel like that's, like, our little part, you know, that we can play, we can help.
Yeah.
That's our difference.
Yeah.
You talked about that at the beginning. Your ethical
Yeah.
foundations as a company. It's as local, Australian owned and run.
Yeah.
Your social enterprise empowering the vulnerable to be lifted out of poverty,
Yeah.
to be respected in their craft, to learn new skills. I mean, that is giving dignity, recreating someone's life.
Recreating.
There are so many incredible reasons to get behind the work that you are doing, and it's really an honour to have you guys come in and talk about that, to share the stories. I know it's personal, it's very real for you.
Yeah.
Is there any other ways people can kind of get involved and partner with you, find you maybe?
Yep.
What social media handles do you have out there?
So we've got Instagram and we've got Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. So
Mantua Sewing, and then
What was it, Mantua Sewing?
at Mantua Sewing, yeah, our Instagram and Facebook, and then we have our website, mantua.com.au.
Mantua.com.au.
Yeah.
go check
Alright.
it out, guys.
Yeah, it will be in the show notes, so make sure you plug on you plug in those links into your phone or your computer and check out what they do.
Yeah. Could I just also, I
Yeah.
just wanted to like mention the help of White Box Enterprises.
Yeah.
Yeah, like without like Luke and his team coming
Yes.
on board, there's no way we'd be able to run it because, you know, I have access to their finance manager. Like, I don't have any of those skills. Like, this is what blows my mind is because I didn't even finish high school, so I don't even have an education. And here I am, like, you know,
Yeah.
running this business with these amazing ladies and...
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maddie-
so I just really want to thank them for all their
Maddie
help.
now applies for our grants.
Yeah.
She writes our policies.
Yeah.
Policies
Does the
and
contracts,
procedures
yeah.
and-
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, I just really want to thank them for their help because without them, yeah.
They're just an email away for all of us.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can we have help? They're like, yeah, cool, we'll come in here and we'll sit down and, you know, draft everything out. It's like, oh, great, okay. Yeah.
And they've
Wow,
provided
I need
us
their
the
number,
space.
please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've provided our space.
It's a
At the
beautiful
moment,
workroom.
yeah.
Yeah. And
And
sewing
machines.
machines. They
Wow.
have
Yeah.
us.
Well,
Yeah.
shout out to White Box
Yes.
Enterprise, Luke. You're
Yeah.
out there. We know you've done an incredible job with many other social enterprises as well. And I think it just goes to say you're an incredible success story. All of you are in this room have an incredible story. And it just goes to show that when you just go out there and have a crack,
Yeah.
you'll be surprised the amount of people that will get around
Oh,
you,
definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
that will support you and believe you. And I even believe, you know, even maybe some people listening in to this will go, I want to get in touch. I want to know how I can support and get behind this initiative. And there might be someone listening with their own idea,
Yeah.
their own goal, their own passion, and all they needed is to hear your story and
I
how
think,
you can make a difference.
You've just got to go for it. Just give it your all. If it's your passion, if it's what you love, like don't let anyone stop you from doing that. That would be one piece of
Particularly
advice.
not fear.
That's great.
Or,
Yeah.
No,
fear
and
of
if
the
you are
unknown.
fear, just kind of push through. Like us, I remember the
Yeah.
first couple of weeks feeling a bit overwhelmed. I took over Kim's role and learning all the new procedures and all the software and things like that. And I remember saying to like Maddie and Leah, "Oh, I feel so out of my depth," and they're like, "No, day at a time. It's what
That's
we
all
do."
we do, just
And
one
I
day.
used to breathe in when I used to see like 10 emails pop up. Like, okay, am I going to be able to answer all of these emails? And now, day by day, and we're 3 months. Well, I'm 3 months in. And I love it. So.
Even with my 35 years experience, I tell the ladies, these girls, I'm still faking it. Just faking it till I make it. And if nobody knows that you're feeling uncomfortable or you're doing something for the first time or you're a bit out of your depth, so I feel that after all my experience. So I kind of, imagine how other people feel.
Yeah, what an inspiration you guys are, and you're making a big difference. There's some women that you're going to go back to in just a minute, and they're going to, when you look into their faces and you see the way you've changed their lives, it's going to drive you to keep going.
Yep.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate you making the time to step away
Thank
from
you.
your hard
No,
work
thank
to
you.
come here to talk about it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's been great.
We'll see you again soon, eh?
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, how much fun was that? It was so good to have 3 lovely ladies in the studio. An in-person interview is always a treat. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Maddie, Leah and Gabrielle from Mantua Sewing. What an incredible work that they're doing. Guys, you can learn more about their work. You can partner with them and support them by heading over to mantua.com.au. In the show notes, I'll have all the links to their social Instagram and Facebook feeds, and you can follow them there. And I actually do have a bonus conversation with Maddie. We catch up a bit later on over Skype. And if you want to hear that, you can become a patron of the show. All patrons get access to bonus episodes where I talk to all my guests at length, about 10 to 15 minutes. We get into really some fun, interesting, quirky questions. You're really going to enjoy that, but you only can do that by becoming a patron, and you can do that by giving just as little as $5 a month to help us produce the show. Head over to patreon.com/Justice Matters, and you can learn more about that. Now, it takes a lot of people to produce this show, and I'd like to thank them personally right now. I'd like to thank John Art and David Gungor, also known as The Brilliants, for their use of the music that we use on the podcast. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Now, I'd also like to thank Jose Biotto, the audiovisual engineer who works tirelessly behind the scenes to film and edit and publish these podcasts. Thanks, mate, so much for all that you do for me and for You Belong. And lastly, if you are enjoying the podcast, there's one other way that you can support us, and that is by rating and reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. You could share an episode that you really enjoyed. You could make a comment. Guys, we love being able to have these conversations and sharing them and really pushing into places where I know a lot of people don't really want to go, but conversations we really need to have. And we want to be able to continue to do that. And so if you're enjoying it and you'd like to show your support, please do so by rating and reviewing. Now, it's time for me to sign off. Thanks so much for joining me for this episode. Come back again soon for the next episode. It'll be dropping next week. But for now, I'm your host, Tim Buxton. Thank you so much for listening.